Hi, I'm Jay Reed and this is Black Horse Garage. So you're thinking of getting a new Porsche 911, are you? Before you go down to the dealer and put in your order, have you thought about a new Porsche 911 from 1978 instead? Well, that's what we're looking at today. You see, this Porsche 911 Turbo from 1978 only has 13,800 miles on it and is, as they say, as new. Let's have a look at it then, shall we? For those in the know, in Porsche circles, this is the Porsche 930, the first ever turbocharged Porsche 911. Porsche initially built it as a homologation special, thinking they'd just build 400 of them so they could qualify for racing. But it went so well that they actually launched it in 1975 and kept it in production for nearly 15 years. They actually withdrew it here in the US in 1980 due to emissions regulations, and only when they realised the 928 model wasn't going to be as successful as they hoped did they reintroduce it in 1986. So here, this car was really only available to you for 9 years. This particular one is from 1978, the year of the first refresh, and when they increased the engine size and intercooler. Whilst initial cars had the 3-litre engine, this has the 3.3-litre flat 6, of course, with just under 300 horsepower. So when you remember that the Carrera of the era had 200 horsepower, the increase by 50% of engine power on this car, quite impressive. This set the bar for the fastest car of its time and bringing with it a fearsome reputation on the road. We'll get to that later though. Out back you see the famous T-tray spoiler which replaced the famous whale tail, and along the sides you see the black protection against the stones kicked up against the flared wheel fenders. You can still order these on modern cars, but this is the car that started them. Inside the Time Warp Turbo then, I feel very privileged to be in here. 13,895 miles, and it is a time capsule. The carpets feel excellent, the leather is still in wonderful condition, and I have to say this dashboard is almost as new, and it feels absolutely wonderful. I can see the wonderful rear fenders in my rear view mirror here. And a very familiar dash for anyone who's driven a Porsche, with the rev counter right in the middle, the turbo gauge in the middle, the boost gauge right in the middle, and on the right hand side here. And it feels comfortable. This is not an uncomfortable car. It feels very modern for its age. I mean, 1978 this car, and still you feel as if you could just get in it, drive it for 1,000 miles and still feel very comfortable in it. Off we go in the 1978 911 Turbo, 13,900 miles, which this is a real treat to drive this car. So the first thing you notice about this Porsche is how comfortable it is. The seats hold you in, but you get the feeling that this is a car that you could drive for a very long distance, and it doesn't feel that removed from a modern Porsche. Now, I've got to temper that with the fact that the brakes are, well, you need to have quite a strong right leg in order to bring this thing to a stop, but I suspect that was pretty normal for 1978. The steering is also not power assisted, so, turning it around, that's, requires some physical strength, let's say. But once on the move, the steering is super direct. It gives you a lot of feedback, so when you're going around a corner you know exactly where you are. Now, the time warp condition of this car makes me want to go very, very slowly and just take it very, very easily. But we should also talk about this car's nickname, the Widowmaker. This car was notorious for two things: oversteer, so when you're going around a corner that back end just sliding out, but also turbo lag, and where the two meet up together, when you're going around a corner and you're tempted to lift off, especially as the power builds, that would be your biggest mistake, and that would be why a lot of these cars have become friendly with the local ditches and the shrubberies and the hedgerows of the country. So the WIDOWMAKER, so I'm going to take it very, very steady today for that very reason. We've picked a lovely, dry, sunny, warm day, mercifully. But otherwise, I think you would have to respect this in the wet, certainly above 3,500 revs per minute. All right, so otherwise this feels like a classic 911. The gearbox on this one actually is actually very easy to use. When I drove a 911 SC from 1982, I found it quite notchy, the 915 gearbox on that particular car. This one actually is very, very smooth. Only 4-speed, which was a criticism of the car at the time. You had to wait to the middle 80s, I think late 80s even, before you got 5 speeds in your 911 turbo. But this one works extremely well, very, very good shape. I suppose as you would expect for a car with, you know, just under 14,000 miles. Yeah, that gearbox is a long throw from first to second. You have to lean right forward to get the gear stick and pull it back. The ride on this car is just as you would expect of a 911. Even one made in 1978. It's very pliable, very usable. It still handles as well though. You know, it's firm enough without being overly firm. You know, that is the selling point of a 911, I guess. But it also feels extremely familiar on the inside. So the dials, the rev counter is right in front of you. You've got an oil pressure gauge in front of you. And it does make you think, actually, do I really want a brand new 911, or do I want something rather more cooler, go back to 1978 and have one with 14,000 miles on? Do you know, I think I'd choose this one. I think I really would. I think this is an absolutely beautiful car that is, frankly, modern enough for me. Okay, so let's do a turbo test and show you the lag on this. You'll be able to watch the boost gauge down here. And we're rolling along more or less at idle power in second gear, and I'm going to put my foot to the floor now. Nothing, 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 building, and we're away. Whoa, power! So it starts building from about 2,500. You really feel it by 3,500. And the party is over by 6,000, so you're really looking at 4,000 to 6,000, but there is tons of power. For a car that was built in 1978, you are not struggling for power in this car, no way. There is plenty of power in this car, and that's a rush. That is a real rush, but as I say, in the wet, going around a corner, let's be a little bit careful in the 911 turbo, and I'm not even going to try it. Given how much the value of these cars have gone up in recent years, going round a corner in the dry. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this look at this time lag turbo. Thanks as always to Black Horse Garage. If you've enjoyed this content, give us a like or consider subscribing to the channel. But otherwise, we'll see you in the next one.